Hey guys, today we're going to talk about responsive layout design. Now, you may have heard about the concept of responsive web design across the blogosphere and just generally in the web world, and today we're going to talk about what it is and, more importantly, how to create it, or at least a small incarnation of it. So you can see I've got this page up here, and it's a page, actually the home page from my personal website. This is a WordPress site, and a couple of videos ago we actually created a WordPress theme for this site. So that's what you see in effect here. And when looking at this site, you can see that we've got this box that contains all the content and kind of anchors the space for all the content. But my browser window is bigger than this box. This box is actually a size of 1055 pixels, and my browser window is a lot bigger than that. So I've got all this wasted space, which in the past is something we just had to deal with, but it's not really perfect. Having all that space isn't really that big of an issue though, because you can still appreciate the content. But when it really gets to be a problem is, look what happens when we narrow this page down to what a mobile device will be. We just get this kind of obnoxious scroll bar, and the content doesn't reflow. And if we get it tiny, what a mobile device would be, we just doesn't accommodate that at all. So with the conception of mobile devices and tablets these days, that is not an ideal solution. So the concept of responsive web design is to make websites responsive to the environment they're in, hence responsive web design. And width is not, changes of width are not the only aspect of responsive web design, although that's the main one we're going to be dealing with today. But they are the most common and the kind of the easiest to compensate for today. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to convert this fixed width website to being what we call fluid width, or kind of pseudo responsive. So that's what we're going to get looking at today. It's relatively easy, but that's what we're going to do. So let's get doing that. So if we open up Coda here, my text editor of choice, you can see I've got the CSS file open, and this is kind of messy right now, but this is essentially the same CSS file we created and worked on for the theme of the video series. So we're gonna stop it from being fixed width and make it fluid width, and talk about some things along the way. So let's get doing that straight away. This wrapper element, which in this case is actually a different idea of wrapper, is going to be the main problem. It has a width of 1050 pixels, so that's constraining the width that our website can be, making it non-fluid. So the first thing you need to do for fluid design is set not an absolute size like pixels, but a relative size. And you might think, what are we setting it relative to? Well, the first element on a HTML page that's visible is always the body element, and that's a block level element, so it's a width of 100%. So anything inside it, any wrappers that don't have width set, are going to be, if we set a relative width, that is going to be a certain width relative to the body element, which is our full window size. So using that, we can say the width of our wrapper is 80% of the full window size. Now, you can see that these main content and sidebar sections are here, and they already have relative widths. This is just how I've been coding websites for a long time, and these, if we look at the code here, these containers, the div with an idea main content section, and the div aside element are inside of the wrapper. So now that we have a wrapper of 80%, and for example our main content area is set to a width of 65%, that main content area is going to take up 65% of that 80% that we said we want it to be. It's going to take up 65% of what 80% is of the window. So in that way, our layout's kind of ideal here. So if we refresh the page, might help if I save my CSS file first. Remember what happens as I get wider with this current fixed pixel value. The layout doesn't compensate for that, and if we get narrower, we just create a scroll bar. See that scroll bar there? We just create a scroll bar. So if when we set it with this percentage width, that's 80% of the body element, and we save that, refresh, the website has learnt to accommodate our narrower width. So, like I was saying, this total area now moves and shifts to accommodate our area. So, just turn that one width to 80% because the containers inside it were already relative width, and that did us a long way to get changed here. But there's still some significant issues that we need to deal with. So, for one thing, you can see this Google custom search area bursts out of the main content area that it fits in, and so does the image. We'll fix the image first, I think. We're we're gonna set it up here as a reset value because it's just a general value. We're gonna say any image on the entire site. Has the maximum width it can be is 100% of its parent element. Now, in this case, its parent element will be the header container, so it won't break out anymore. Let's talk about what the difference is between this and setting a width of 100%. What we're saying is the max width is 100%, so we don't want to stretch it out to be 100% if it doesn't need to be, but we're just saying that's the maximum width it can be. Now, a word on browser support, minimum and maximum width, which we're going to be setting quite a lot later, aren't supported in the IE6, so it won't respect when you get down to a minimum width of this or a maximum width of something else. It will just carry on continue off, so that's definitely something to be aware of. So yeah, with that max width CSS in there, if we go over here and refresh, our image is only ever fits into our area that we have for it, and this is the same for all images in the content area. Like if I gone to this place, for example, which has an image in it, it only ever fits into the content area. It doesn't break out of it, so that's kind of nice. So we've already come a long way to making this responsive. There's a few more things we need to do though. For one thing, if we go to the contact form, I have form elements have an attribute called size, and that is literally the number of characters they can horizontally accommodate. So I have CSS on. I have an attribute on this input, for example, to say it can accommodate only 40 characters, but the space for those 40 characters, it's fine when we're it's fine when we're a wide setting here, but right now it's we're when we get into our mobile version, we're breaking out of the content area, and that just doesn't look good at all. It causes scroll and all kinds of nasty stuff. So what we're gonna say is we're, as well as saying our images are gonna be 100%, we're gonna say inputs and text areas can also only accommodate 100% of the space available for them. And luckily, the CSS will override that value that we have set there, and it will actually do that. So if we refresh, and things will actually still work fine. Now, this is where you can see the max width in effect. If we so we've set minimum width for 100%, but we haven't set that as the max width. So if we go crazy big, we're not forced into always having it 100%. The only thing we are forced into is that it's not any wider than it can be, basically. So that's kind of nice there. Now talking of crazy big, if we get crazy big, we notice that we've got some issues here. This area is the picture should stick to the side, but that's not happening here, as we can see. So we need to tackle that. I'm just gonna open up Firebug and see what's causing that to happen. So we're going to look in our header element itself, because that's as you can see, the header is actually occupying 100% of this place, so that's not the issue. What the issue is the site image div. Now, this div's floated, and what happens with floated elements is you say what the total width of the element is that you want to be floated, and then, which in this case is a width of 100% of that element, and you say if you float something all the way to the left or all the way to the right, it will stick on the left or the right. So in this case, we're floating it to the right, but we're saying this has to accommodate 22%, but this image must be smaller than what 22% of this area is. So if we just gradually reduce and you see our image stays responsive, so but we want it to be the default size. So our size for getting it all the way to the edge is
it's 1630
13 pixels. So that's where 13%. Sorry. So that's where the ability to nudge things around in Firebug comes on really useful. So let's see, we're applying to the parent div, not the image itself. So our div is called site image. So you can say I'm going to change it from 22 to 18. And if we refresh the page, sorry, I got that wrong. We're going to change it to 13 because that's what we found out earlier in the Firebug. 13. And then as we narrow this down, it should still accommodate that. So as we get smaller and smaller, it makes sure it can fit in. It looks like there's something a little weird there with the sizing, but that's fine for now. And even when we get really small, that still fits in. Now, we get some issues here. When you get too small, or likewise too big, it just looks ridiculous. So if I bring this full screen, for example, I'm on a width right now of 1,560 pixels, and that just looks ridiculous. We've got so much wasted space. The sidebar's massive over here, so although it's good to have fluid with elements, often what you want to do is set some constraints that they can work under so that it doesn't look ridiculous. So if we come out of the area here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually using Web Developer Toolbar in Firefox as well. I'm going to use a handy tool to display the Windows site. And if I say display Windows site and title, that's going to tell us how wide our window is. So we're just going to play with it, and then when it starts looking ridiculous, that's the maximum width we're going to set. So let's go to a page with some text content here. And let's start narrowing the page. Sorry, I'll just have to put that on again. Let's start narrowing the page down until it starts to look like it's ridiculous. So I reckon let's go 1440 because that's a standard screen resolution. So let's say at that time we don't want it to get any bigger because you can see all the content, so you don't really need it to get any bigger. So we're going to set a maximum on the wrapper, which is, we're going to say, even though it says 80%, the maximum width that these other values can be calculated on is going to be 1,440 pixels. and I must have done something wrong because the margin 0 auto is not taking effect. Oh yeah, I forgot to put a semicolon. So it can get bigger, and it doesn't stay entirely static like the other design did, but also it can't get crazy big. So that's kind of exactly what we wanted to achieve that, and that's really good. I'm really pleased with that. There's one more issue we need to take into account though. This area can also get tiny, and we don't want that because that just looks ridiculous. If we get too small, the search bar can't accommodate the sidebar looks tiny. It just looks ridiculous. So the same way we don't want it to look super large, we also don't want it to look super small. So as you might guess, we're going to use MinWhip for that, and we need to decide what the MinWhip is going to be. Now, they're not showing it, but on this website, I do actually display ads, and there's one big image ad in the top here. It's not very intrusive. You can just go on and browse the content, but I do need to accommodate for that image ad. Now, I could make the ad responsive so the ad gets smaller with the rest of the content, but that's actually against Google's terms of service. So obviously I don't want to do that. So we're also going to set these widths it can only get as small as this, and then you do create a scroll bar. So I need to I need to find out what that width is. So give me a second now. I've just basically done the same thing as we did for the other areas. I've just looked at the ad by eye and smalled it in Firebug and seen what looks right. And I've decided that, as I've put in the CSS here, the minimum width that these things can get to is 790 pixels. So we're setting some perhaps the minimum width that those values can be calculated against is 790 pixels. So we're setting some parameters, but we're just also making sure it doesn't look crazy. That's good thing. So basically what I've done is created a fluid design. Now this isn't gonna work in IE6. These values are just gonna be crazy. The minimum and maximum values just aren't gonna be functional. So it's not an idea for them. What I would do in that situation, if I was caring about IE6, which in this case I'm not, but if I was, I would just load a conditional style sheet. We set the values. So basically what we've done there is changed it from a fixed width design to a fluid width design and can accommodate any width. Now I've just noticed what we're going to do now is make it so that, as you see, when we get wide enough, the search button isn't trailing, but when we get too small, the search button falls down. So how are we going to accommodate that? Well, let's get to a point where it's too small and look at it in Firebug. And it's inside of this main bar div. That's the anchor for the float. And we've got a nav div and a search from area. So I'm going to play to the search from. And I'm just going to make it so that it has to have a larger width to accommodate this button. So what we're actually going to do for this is say we're going to set a minimum width on that, saying the minimum width that can be. So actually no, we're not. We are just going to pull. We're going to make it a little bigger until we get at that. So let's small this area up now and see if we that does indeed help. So yeah, if we set the width as 36%, that should help us there. This is what fluid rip design is about, basically playing with the design and seeing what works. So let's change that. Just say the search from part is 36. Refresh. Now if we narrow this browser window, we should no longer get the issues with it not working. And this layout's responsive now. As we narrow and widen the browser window, it accommodates from the differences in width up to the point. So we just made a responsive layout. Now, what this doesn't do, obviously, is accommodate for mobile devices, because the mobile devices are going to be smaller than that width. But there's just a scroll bar there, and that isn't ideal. I've got some ideas on how we are going to accommodate for that, but we do need to set a minimum width. So in the next video, we're going to talk about something called media queries to build a specifically mobile design beyond just this responsive layout. So we're going to get to doing that, but that's it for this video. And I just wanted to say that because this is a real world example, it might seem more cluttered than just basics of doing a fluid design. So I've created this project on GitHub that is the simple fluid CSS template. I'll put a link to this in the description, but you can download the code. It's just a HTML file and just a CSS file for you to get the simplest thing possible. Basically the idea of fluid design is setting percentage width, so percentage of the body element, which is the total window size, and then accommodating based on that. So anyway, thanks for watching. In the next video, we're just gonna accommodate this by creating a mobile interface. So watch out for that. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.